There is a video of a living giant squid in American waters. Exactly one. It was recorded on the 19th of June, 2019, in the Gulf of Mexico by a camera working alone in the dark. Nobody watched it happen. Hours later, somebody opened the file and found the animal sitting inside it. 30 minutes after that, lightning hit the ship. There was one copy of that file. It had not been backed up. The camera was built by a scientist named Edith Witter. What drew the squid in was a ring of blue lights, pretending to be a jellyfish in trouble. Every version of this story tells the part where the arms come out of the dark. That part was never in doubt. Keeping what the camera recorded, that is the story. There is a question underneath every wildlife discovery you have heard about. It almost never gets asked out loud. Not how do we find the animal? How does finding it become a fact? 4 things have to happen. Something has to record it. Somebody has to watch the recording. That recording has to survive. And somebody qualified has to put their name to what is in the frame. 4 links. Any of them can break. When one breaks, nothing is left behind to mark it. No gap, no note. Just an animal that stays, officially, unseen. In a single day in June 2019, one of those links came within 30 minutes of breaking. For most of human history, the giant squid was a rumor that kept washing ashore. Sailors described a many-armed thing that could take a ship. What science actually had was wreckage, sucker-shaped scars on sperm whales, beaks cut out of their stomachs, and the occasional carcass washed up on a beach, pale, collapsed, and a long way from home. That is enough to name a species. It is not enough to know anything about how it lives. The water it lives in has a name. The twilight zone runs from roughly 200 meters down to about 1,000, where sunlight thins to almost nothing without quite going. Below that is the midnight zone, where none reaches at all. Between them, they hold most of the animal life in the ocean and almost none of the attention. In June 2019, a research cruise called Journey into Midnight went out into the Gulf of Mexico aboard the vessel Point SIR, funded by NOAA's Office of Exploration and Research. The chief scientist was Sun-Ku Yonsen of Duke University. It sailed on the 7th of June for 17 days. The expedition was not hunting a giant squid. It was there to study bioluminescence, how animals in the deep make and use their own light. Witter was aboard, and Witter had brought her camera. The instrument is called the Medusa, and it is defined by what it does not have. No propellers, no floodlights. It is an open metal frame carrying a low-light camera and a battery, hung under a surface float and left to drift for about 24 hours until the power runs out. It lights the water with dim red light, at a wavelength most deep-sea eyes are not built to see. Bolted to the frame is a ring of blue LEDs. Witter calls the E-jelly, and the thinking behind it is the good part. When a deep-sea jellyfish called Atolla is attacked, it does not flee quietly. It lights up in a spinning pinwheel of blue. The display is not a cry for help. It is an advertisement. It says, "Something is eating me, and whatever is eating me is worth eating." Witter has called it a burglar alarm. It works by summoning something bigger to deal with the problem. The E-jelly is that alarm, faked. A quiet frame, a red light, and a lie about a jellyfish. They dropped it, recovered it, and dropped it again. Each deployment cost a day. On the 5th, something came. Not one person on that ship knew. The Medusa records alone, on a line, in the dark, with every person on the expedition the better part of a kilometer above it, doing something else. An instrument that works alone has one flaw, and everybody who uses one knows it. It does not tell you when something happened. It hands you the hours afterward, all of them, at the speed they were recorded. Each deployment came back with about a day of video, and most of a day of deep-sea video is nothing at all. Black water, marine snow, a constant slow drizzle of organic debris falling through the frame like static. Somebody has to sit and watch it, and on a working research cruise, nobody has a spare day. Nathan Robinson, then with the Cape Eleuthera Institute, was the one working through the backlog. The NOAA expedition log for 2019 puts it plainly. On the Wednesday, Robinson started going through the downloaded videos from the 5th deployment. He was about 20 hours in and had seen almost nothing. He found it in the 3rd file. A single tubular arm drifts into frame and out again, a limb with no body attached. It returns, closer to the lure. Then the whole animal arrives. The phrase that stuck in the reporting that followed was an elegant explosion of arms and tentacles, the whole spread opening at once around the e-jelly. It wraps the lure. It works out that a ring of plastic and light is not food. It recoils and drives itself back out of frame. The whole encounter lasts seconds. Robinson has said he jumped up and waved a hand rather than trying to speak, that Witter could read it off his face before he got a word out. The team crowded the monitor and replayed the few seconds they had. They put the animal at 3 to 3.7 meters, 10 to 12 feet. It was 759 meters down, just under 2,500 feet. A juvenile. By the standards of its own species, a small one. Mature females can pass 10 meters. The seconds themselves carried information. The animal did not wait for something to blunder past it. It came in on a light, deliberately, from out of range. The behavior Kubo, Dianara, and Mori had reported back in 2005, when they described Architeuthis striking and tangling prey with its feeding tentacles rather than ambushing it. And it was close to shore. The Medusa was drifting about 100 miles southeast of New Orleans in one of the most heavily worked seas on Earth. Shipping lanes, fishing fleets, thousands of oil and gas structures standing in the water. 30 minutes later, the ship was struck by lightning. The sky went dark, and a squall came in. Then, a crack, a flash, and a jolt through the hull. The bolt hit the ship's long-range radar antenna on the starboard side, and the antenna exploded. Robinson has described the room. His account, recorded on camera for Ocean X in 2019, is the only first-person telling of that afternoon. They heard the crack, ran outside, and saw a plume of black smoke. Lightning had struck the boat, and the raw file had not been backed up. They went back inside to find out what the surge had done. One of the laptops on the boat had been fried. Nobody yet knew what it had done to the drive. Sit with that, because it is the whole video. The first recording of a living giant squid in the waters of the United States existed, at that moment, as one copy, on one drive, on a metal ship, in an electrical storm, with a dead laptop in the same room. Then the captain came over the intercom and told everyone to look at the port bow. A waterspout was forming, a tornado at sea, 50 meters off the side of the boat. Every documentary about this encounter starts at the moment the arms come into frame, and that is understandable, because it is the beautiful part. It is also the part that was never uncertain. The animal was always going to be there. It had been there the whole time. The genuinely uncertain part, the part that could have gone either way, was whether a file survived a Wednesday afternoon. We tell discovery stories as though finding is the hard bit. Most of the time, the finding is the easy bit, and the filing is where things are actually lost. The waterspout came apart. The storm went through. They plugged the drive in and waited for a machine to recognize it. The drive mounted. The files were there. The video played. Of the laptops in that room, the one holding the only copy of a living giant squid was the one the surge had spared. Run the alternative, because it is not far-fetched. Had the strike landed 30 minutes earlier, Robinson never opens the third file. The drive dies with the animal on it. Nobody aboard knows what was lost, because nobody had seen it yet. There is no gap in the record to point at. No line in a log reading a giant squid came to the E-Jelly on the 5th deployment, and we lost it. The cruise reports 5 deployments and no encounter. The animal would have been just as real. It would simply have stayed, officially, unseen. Surviving the storm made it a file. It did not make it a fact. A video of an animal is not a record of that animal until somebody qualified puts their name to what is in the frame. On this footage, that was genuinely hard. The clip is low light and monochrome, shot at distance, of an animal that is mostly arms and motion. Deep-sea squid are difficult to separate under good conditions. Several large species could produce a similar silhouette at that range. The features that tell them apart are small. The arrangement of the suckers, the 2 long feeding tentacles against the 8 shorter arms, the shape of the club at the tentacle tip. Those are precisely the details a dim red light blurs away. The clip went to Michael V. Ney, a zoologist with NOAA Fisheries and a specialist in squid and octopus. His verdict came back in careful words. He was nearly certain the animal was of the genus Architeuthis. Notice the hedge. It is not a formality. It is the honest width of what a few seconds of dark video can carry, said out loud by the person best placed to know. It is worth being exact about what that confirmation buys. It does not make the animal more real. It makes the animal citable. A confirmed occurrence can go into a database, be referenced in a later study, counted in a range map, argued with. An unconfirmed video cannot. It stays an anecdote with pictures. The ladder behind this is shorter than you would expect. In 2005, Tsuwa Enchmi Kubo Deishira and Ki Oichi Mary published the first images of a live giant squid in the wild, still photographs, taken on a baited line 900 meters down off the Ogasa Wara Islands. Not video, photographs. Video came in 2012, at the same islands. That expedition put Witter in the water alongside Kubo Deishira, and the order matters, because it usually gets told wrong. Witter's Medusa produced the first footage. Kubo Deishira's crude submersible produced the close-up that went around the world. The Gulf of Mexico was the 3rd time a live giant squid had been filmed at all, and only the 2nd time in its own deep habitat. Nobody thinks Architeuthis is rare. Sperm whales eat far too many of them for that. The scarcity is not in the animal. It is in the chain. And that is where this stops being a story about a squid. Everything in the fossil record came down the same kind of chain, with more links and worse odds. An animal has to die somewhere that preserves it, which, for most of the ocean, is nowhere, because the seafloor is a scavenging ground and soft bodies do not last. The sediment has to hold. The rock has to survive a few 100 million years of burial, heat, and folding without being destroyed. It has to end up somewhere a person will walk. Somebody has to notice it. Somebody has to recognize it. And somebody has to publish it under their name. Break any link, and the animal is not rare. The animal is absent, which, from where we stand, reads exactly the same. This is why the deposits that preserve soft tissue get treated as treasure. The Zollnhofen limestone of Bavaria, laid down in the late Jurassic, holds things that anywhere else would have rotted to nothing. Jellyfish, ink sacs, the outlines of animals with no hard parts at all. Those beds are not evidence that the late Jurassic ran unusual animals. They are evidence of what every other rock is quietly leaving out. We have been on the other side of this, in the late Cretaceous rock of the Nhenwy group on Vancouver Island. There, the animal is known from Beaks, and almost nothing else. That was a case of having too little and imagining too much. This one is the mirror. Here we had the whole animal, alive, on video, sitting on a drive, and the number of things that had to go right for anyone to ever know it is uncomfortable, which changes what that clip is. It is not a picture of a giant squid. It is a picture of a giant squid that we happened to keep, recorded by a camera that worked, on a drive that was read before it could die, by a man who sat down and watched 20 hours of black water, and certified by a specialist willing to attach his name to a blurry frame and a hedge. Every one of those is a coin that landed the right way up. Change any single one and the file is gone. The cruise reports 5 quiet deployments, and the sentence "we have never filmed a giant squid in American waters" stays true a while longer, while being, the whole time, false. The ocean is not hiding its animals from us. It is simply under no obligation to hand us a copy of the file. What we call the known world is the subset of things that made it through the chain intact. How large the other part is, the record will never tell us. Absence leaves nothing behind to measure. We nearly lost this one to a Wednesday thunderstorm. This one turned on holding the whole animal and nearly losing the proof. There is a case that failed in the opposite direction and nobody noticed for 15 years. In the Cretaceous rock of Vancouver Island, a set of beaks sat in a museum drawer under the wrong name. A decade and a half went by. Somebody finally scanned them properly. They belong to the largest invertebrate predator anyone has found and the earliest octopus in the record. Then the headlines got hold of the size estimate. An animal known from a few chips of KY tin became a 60-foot monster that hunted mosasaurs. The animal was real. The number was ours. That one is already up. It is the Cretaceous kraken, and it is on the end card. The exact inverse of this. Everything to imagine, almost nothing to hold. Which is the worst way to be wrong, losing the proof of something real, or keeping the proof and inventing the animal around it.